Hello, everyone. Today, we're gathered together to talk about hackathon and hackathon goals for the non-coder. I'm pretty sure that everyone has heard about hackathons and how they bring some kind of a revolution when it comes to coming together with new ideas, sitting around virtually on some kind of a platform or in an office, brainstorming ideas, looking at potential solutions that can address a problem, and then do a cause and like a cause and effect to see if this particular solution fits the need of my business, of my functional requirement, and see what can I do in order to either automate this particular task or build a new workflow or solve for the business needs. Now, it's not that every time you hear about a hackathon or a solution or an automation, it has to be only technology. The underlying solution has to be technical in most cases, but how to get there can be achieved using quite a few different ways. And today, in our session, we're going to focus more on how some of these tasks can be achieved jointly by working with technologists and functional domain experts or process automation people or people with knowledge of the process. As we go through the session, we'll try and understand who are the participants of a hackathon, what are the various categories that they fall under, how do we understand and solve this as a team, saying that this solution that needs to be implemented or this particular approach that needs to be implemented will solve or attempts to solve a solution for the problem that we have at hand. So in a nutshell, what we're going to talk about today is the objectives, the team composition, the activities of a typical hackathon team or a group of individuals. So, let's start with the objectives. Then we kind of foray into the approach as to how we want to do this, brainstorm a bit around who are the people that you would want to have around in order to achieve this hackathon objective. Then what are the activities that each of these individuals need to partake and play their roles when they are representing a unit or a hackathon goal. Then last not the least is we'll also do a deep dive into what would be the involvement during the actual hackathon, because as you see, there's going to be a process where we come up with an idea, we talk about it, you brainstorm it, you kind of punch holes in it and identify, is this really the solution or is this really the problem statement to begin with? Then you need like-minded individuals, and we need to plan out their activities. But more importantly, during the hackathon, what is it that everyone is expected? Every one of us is expected to play a role, and it's very important to kind of discuss about that and see who is going to be doing what when the actual hackathon is in session. Having said that, let's kind of get a little deep. Do a deep dive rather into the hackathon objectives. And like I started, everyone, most of us would have learned about a hackathon, read about it, not necessarily participated in one, but at least know what a hackathon is. But let's get a refresher into the objectives. So it's probably a new word, I would say, in the last couple of years, but the idea of creating a solution existed for generations, for centuries and generations, I would say, right? Because that's how innovation started. That's how the wheel was created for that matter. But just to kind of put in perspective with the hackathon, it is a, you look at a problem or you look at a something that's impacting your Maybe it's a requirement that's coming from your end client. It is potentially some kind of a manual task that's been repeatedly done, accounting for a lot of time that you're investing in. It is something that you've been wanting to kind of build on an existing solution or remediate an existing bug. It could be many different ways you can think about it, but at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is you're trying to solution. You're trying to come up with an idea that has a logical explanation of how, with an approach, and potentially as you solve for that problem or that need, you think about how do you create a roadmap out of this. So smaller solutions, when you combine them together, could potentially be what we call it as a product, right? So the idea is to kind of see as to how do we come up with a small unit of work which basically solves the purpose, which allows you to come up with a technology solution or a combination of process and technology to solve your particular ask. Now, if you do that successfully, then, or if you have an idea that, yes, this approach could potentially help me do this, save me time, help me market this quickly, take it to my business stakeholders, that's what the objective of this hackathon should be. Now, there are organizations that use this to kind of, achieve multiple goals as well. So, you always see that when you talk to people around you in your organization, in your friend circle, your colleagues across industries, you see that people are very eager to share ideas, and more importantly, when they work together in a group, it's a little more productive. It's more about making sure that the creative juices that we as individuals have come together, and we support a common cause, or we try to solution for a common problem. So we've seen this in the industry that hackathons are a great opportunity for people to kind of come out with solutions, explanation, or do their part as to what could be a solution for a long-running problem. So in a way, it helps you identify hidden talents within the organization, and in some cases outside of the organization as well, come together with a common purpose. And in many cases, I've seen the hackathon being used as something to foster internal collaboration, innovation. It's more of people wanting to kind of move away from their mundane day-to-day roles, look up something different and say, hey, probably doing the same thing day in and day out, week over week, month over month, you kind of get stagnated. So you want to kind of think outside the box. Think about something that interests you, come up with a solution, bounce it with some people, see if it works, if there's interest. And that could be the very basis of a hackathon as well. It doesn't have to be a brilliant out-of-the-box idea or a new product that you want to build. It could be smaller steps, redundancies, how can they be eliminated, manual processes where you spend a lot of time and money, and more importantly, you get bored doing the same thing again and again. You know what? I want to automate that. That could be a hackathon idea. So the objectives of the hackathon could be different for different people, and it all depends on how we focused on a particular task, and how do you want to kind of give it the constructs of a hackathon. So hopefully that gives us enough knowledge about what a hackathon objectives are and how do we solution for that. Moving over, I think we should talk a little bit about the approach, right? Because anything, if there's more than one person involved, which in most cases it is, whether it's a hackathon or it's a team, or we always in paired in twos or in fours or in groups, so there are always people working in teams. We need to have an approach, otherwise it becomes non-manageable. Anything which is not planned properly ends up being a disaster. So let's talk about the approach. So to begin with, you need to do your research, and that's kind of a very, very high level thing to say, that you have to do your research. You need to know what you're looking at. You need to know what is it that you're trying to solve for. So whether it's a new product that you're trying to bring to the table, or it's an innovative idea that you have, you need to do your market trends analysis. If you're trying to automate something which is existing, if you're trying to create a solution for something which is mundane and been going on for ages, then of course you need to do your research to say, what is it that people are spending time on? Why are they not happy doing this? How do we bring in standardization? What processes can be grouped together? So research plays a very important role. Analysis, a ton of analysis is required, A, to understand the current problem of hand or the future solution that you're trying to make. But analysis will be required to the extent that you need to be relatively clear that yes, this is the objective, this is the main objective of what we're trying to solve for, and how do we put our heads together to solve for that. So that's the part where research comes into place. Then, with research, you also want to kind of think about a potential solution. And when I say a potential solution, it's not easy to kind of get a potential solution right away because there's no silver bullet. You need to look at alternatives. You need to come up with, this is the holistic program. I may not be able to achieve everything at one go. So I'm going to pick one, which is the most painful or the one that's going to bring me the most respect from my business users, or it's going to solve for them. Maybe take that one and start as a small step. That could be your main core that you're trying to solve for. Innovation, this is what is innovation, right? When you have a problem at hand and you have people who are interested in kind of looking at solutions or relying on you for solutions, you come up with an alternative, you come up with an innovative idea, you come up with a first step saying that, out of this job that takes, let's say, 4 hours to run, if I do this, it reduces the time drastically. And the best part is it can be done unattended because I don't need to sit and do the mapping and run this program the next time. Maybe a click of a button could basically run this program in relatively shorter time and could eliminate some of the manual defects that a human being introduces into the system or the manual process introduced into the system. So that's an innovation. That's innovation. Now, if you have an idea, you want to try and see if it works. So as part of the hackathon, one of the things you want to do is solution for this. Build a prototype, build a small routine. You could use multiple things for that. It could be a script that you want to run. It could be a macro that you would want to automate using, let's say, Microsoft Office. It could be a Python script or any kind of a script, a shell script, a Unix script, any of them. But obviously, I'm talking about technology here. But that's where, like I said earlier, every role in a team needs to be decided. So who's going to be running this? Is it technical enough? Do we need a technologist to do it? If you don't need a technologist, something like a record and play thing can help. That's why I talked about Excel macros as an example. There are many such no-code, low-code, or click that will create code tools that are available in the market that can be used. So think a bit about the solution. Think that's where the innovation bit comes in. And as human beings, we need to socialize. We need to agree that, yes, this is a prevalent problem. We need to also agree that this could potentially ease that problem as well. So socializing the objectives of the hackathon, the potential innovative solutions that you want to bring in, the alternatives that you've discussed, this is a very important part of this phase 3 that I've shown here on the screen, which talks about socializing. So socializing means taking your ideas to a larger forum. It could be the core team of the hackathon, or if you want, you can take it beyond that as well, because the more ideas you get, the more suggestions you get, you are better off trying to incorporate that, think about it ahead of time, rather than waiting for the D-Day, which I call as the hackathon day. So, as a prep to that, 2 weeks prior to the hackathon or 3 weeks prior to the hackathon, some of these things need to be done. The research need to happen, ideas need to be brainstormed, activities need to be socialized, solutions need to be discussed, and you want enough so that you have a recipe written down, so that the hackathon is all about executing to that recipe and actually making that change happen, right? So the 3 steps that we talked about is all preparing for the hackathon, ensuring that as a team we are on the same page with a common objective. We might be surprised looking at what the execution would be. Maybe it may not solve the purpose, but hey, the whole purpose is to try. And a hackathon doesn't guarantee success, but at least it tells you whatever you had in mind, whether it's going to work or not work, right? So that could potentially is one way of looking at it. Now, let's talk about managing change. Now, that's the most interesting part, or the difficult part, or the challenging part. You can call it whatever, because you've spent time, you come up with an idea, you brainstorm it about solutions, about potential approaches. You kind of had a buy-in after socializing with the team, but now this is the proof of the pudding. Is it going to work, or is it that's what we are here to find out. So this is the part where you have to build it out. You have to look at the roadmap. You want to kind of implement a small piece of what we taught and see if it works, if it solves the problem, or solves the problem partially. If it does, then you have to talk about what the next steps are, what support is required. Unfortunately, if you think this is not going in the intended direction, it's time for us to kind of take a detour, or even potentially looking at a different solution than what we thought would be the solution in the first place. Let's move on to the team composition. So as I said, it's practically like any team. It could be a sports team, or it could be a crew of engineers working on a project. It could be a project team like we have in many of our projects. Or it could be when you were in school, when we formed groups of teachers divided us into groups, saying that, hey, 4 of you or 5 of you are supposed to work on this project. This is we've been doing this in many other contexts in the past. The hackathon is no different. It's the same thing. So based on experiences that we've gathered, we feel that a teams of size of 4 is potentially the best, that the maximum that you could do. You could do it as an individual, but again, it's best to collaborate with someone, maybe 2 or 3. But I would recommend keeping it to a team size of 4, because of the nature of the discussion, the way this needs to be program managed, the way this needs to be implemented. It's difficult if you have a team size of more than 4. So let's assume 4 is the most is the most that you can have. And what roles can these individuals play on the hackathon team? So I'll start with, and we're focusing more on the non-technical member. Obviously, we're not talking about the developers or the coders, as we call them. So looking at options from a non-technical standpoint, we would need people who understand what are we trying to solve here. I would call them as business developers, or SMEs, or subject matter experts in this case. So if I take an example of something which is an existing manual process, or an existing issue which we are trying to solve for, which we're trying to automate for, the business developer or the SME is the most important person here, because that individual understands the problem. That individual goes through the pain of doing that process manually over and over again over the last many years, or in some cases even more than that. Now, so we need someone who understands that. That's what the business developer is. So once you understand that, you would want to come up with alternatives. You want to brainstorm. You want to come up with design, saying that if this is a task that I've been doing, in a manual way, is there a way that this can be incorporated into a workflow? Now, does this workflow mean that I need a screen, for that matter, a user interface, or some kind of all I need to go is go and click a button somewhere which is integrated with some kind of an application menu. So some part of this need to be thought through and integrated. So that's where the designer comes into picture. But designers are not just people who design from a technology standpoint. This is talking about a functional or a solution design. We also need people who are going to drum up this, saying that, hey, this is what we're going to do. Looks like this is something that your teams have been suffering, or being sharing most of the facing most of the brunt. So we are coming up with a solution. Would you like to partner? Would you be our first guinea pig, or for that matter, the person who's going to try to use the solution if you make it? If you have operational challenges, can you tell us what they are? Can we solve for them as part of the hackathon? So these are things that you can do, an individual can do as part of a hackathon, who's not necessarily associated with the actual change or the code or the technology aspect of that. And once the technical member creates the solution, we need a lot of people to validate it. Did this actually solve the problem? Did this, is this the intended behavior? Can we go and test it out? Can we take a real life example? Do a acceptance test of sorts if you want to, right? So that's where I say the key critical roles within a non-technical profile comes in for a hackathon. Moving forward, let's also, now that we know what these roles are, I think we should take a deep dive into what are the activities that these individuals who are performing non-technical roles in a hackathon are doing. Now, go back to the question, right? Emphasize this, saying that, can non-coder really any help with the hackathon process? Obviously, yes, because that's what we've been talking about all this while. But specifically, let's say if I were to take the SME, the subject matter expert, or the functional person, let's kind of deep dive and say, what all could this individual be of help? The first one we talked about is, and we discussed this in my previous slide as well, is the idea. What is it that we are trying to innovate? What is it that we are trying to solution? Is it worth putting in a lot of effort to kind of come up with a solution which is really not going to help you cut down on either time or cost? Would you want to do that? And I'd rather say, there's no, it doesn't really make sense, because it's defeating the primary objective, because you do want to kind of get something tangible out of that. So the functional expert of the SME is very key when we start thinking about the idea, when you're thinking about what is it that you're solutioning for. Is it going to improve efficiency? Is it going to save you cost? Is it going to give a better I'd say work-life balance for the person who's using this, because this individual is tired of doing the same repetitive, non-value added work over and over again. And he or she is saying that, I'm done with this. One more time you ask me to do this, I'm not going to do this. Guess what? That's where these solutions come in to help. And they not only boost the morale of the person who's doing this, but also save a ton of resources for the organization. Automating existing manual processes and workflows. That's where I'll start looking if I were to be associated with the hackathon. And ideas, and getting new innovation and new products ideas are great. But if you want to start small, and if you want to kind of really make a difference, I think this is the place to keep looking, or at least start looking. And you'll be amazed that as and how you look into this process, you would be more and more intrigued to kind of piece the pieces of the puzzle. You start with small, then you kind of piece them together, and you see, wow, this is more than what I'd ever expected when I started on the journey. Part two of what this whole thing is coming up with custom solutions, right? And this is where there is a lot of work that's going on. If you look at it, the whole fintech industry, or if you talk about the whole insurance tech, or you talk about, startups, that's the right word that I was looking for, rather than fintechs and insurance tech. The startup ecosystem, they're trying to find a solution for any of the day-to-day tasks that can be standardized, optimized? You take an example of a book of a taxi booking or ride booking services, or for that matter, delivery service, whether that gives you groceries or food that you ordered. Everything comes from thinking about something which is out of the box that helps solve a purpose, right? That brings automation, that has a business idea. So a lot of that can start something small, that you want a solution for. Then you can piece together the larger puzzle and say, this is how the program is going to it is going to grow. These are the various aspects that you're going to add. You start with this, then you add this, then you sequence the next important thing. So the prioritization bit. So that's one place that we see. Non-coders or non-technologists can play a beautiful role, thinking about the larger impact. You start small, like I said, solution to something, try to piece it together, then look at the end-to-end objective and say that how does this fit into the larger picture, and how do I need to go from where I am to where I want to be. Now, when it comes to the activities, a few things needs to be kept in mind. These days, we are all working remote, so obviously most of these are going to be remote. But there have been times when co-located teams have had they were like boot camps where people get into a particular facility, lock them up for, let's say, 24 hours. Come with some preparation. Like I said, brainstormings have been done, but these next 24 hours, we're going to all focus towards applying all the research that we've done, all the validations that we've done outside of the hackathon or the prep to the hackathon. Let's put it to bed and see if this really works. So venue and participation is important. Planning, there needs to be coordination to make sure dates are aligned, people availability, SMEs are there, everything's lined up. In this particular case, we have the team from City University of New York, the Queens College team. We have the Capgemini team. We are hoping to have some of our clients come in. We have the Q Impact. The digital page team that's going to be helping with this initiative. So it's basically planning for all that is going to be important. And then specifically within your team, you need to have a representative that actually holds things together, working with these various groups, planning for it, making sure everything is in place, and people know what their roles and responsibilities are when you meet for those days when the actual hackathon is being conducted. The second point is a no-brainer, right? You cannot there's nothing like over communication, even if there is one. You have to communicate. You have to make sure everyone is aware of what that individual's responsibilities are. If you need to register on some links, if you need to kind of put together some kind of a thought process or an idea that you want to kind of present it, all that needs to happen. Mailers, trainings, webinars, whatever you need to do in order to get to that day and present yourself as a team needs to happen. As a run-up to this, then I'm pretty sure you and the team would organize smaller events where you understand what is it that we're going to do between now and the hackathon and the actual hackathon. Those days, how would you have periodic checkpoints, because it's not an endless amount of time you have this. You'll have to balance it out, saying that the first couple of hours we're going to do this, then we're going to go and communicate it, go and take some help from some of the mentors out there. If there's a roadblock, if there's a, if you're not sure, go get some help. So all that needs to be part of the communication plan. It's more like it is a plan, a project plan as you call it, but it is a communication and execution plan here. The governance is important too, right? Because I know I touched upon the mentors and guides, but that's from a planning perspective. But when actually in the hackathon or as a prep to the hackathon, if you think that there are doubts, if you think that there is some kind of there's no clarity because two individuals have two different thoughts and both of them could be right, but if you want to kind of get on a common page, you do want to kind of reach out to some of your mentors and see what should be the most promising situation, solution in this case. So plan for that. present ideas with the judges, with the mentors, get feedback, come on a consensus, because it's very important that the entire team is working towards one common agenda. And that's been the point that I've been discussing from the very first slide that we've been talking about. Last not the least is support, right? And when I say support, this is, these are two parallel tracks. One is the support that you need in order for the team of 4 or team of 3 to conduct as a unit, and the other is the support that you would potentially need from from your colleagues. Someone else is, let's say of a team that's having multiple ideas and they can only pick up one. Maybe you have a very pre-validated idea which you can potentially ask this team. That's the support that you can reach out to. Or let's say someone knows about a solution, you want to just brainstorm it, you talk about this, and they happen to know about a beautiful, well-documented video on YouTube or TED Talks where they try to implement some of these. It's all about networking. It's all about talking to multiple people, trying to get ideas, trying to basically have a person or a group of individuals that you can reach out to if you see that you are getting bottlenecked or if you kind of hit the roadblock. Now, whenever you're looking for participating in a hackathon, there'll always be questions saying that, am I ready for this? Do I even have an idea that I think is unique and I can take it to a committee or a set of clients or stakeholders and say that this is what we want to do? I think we all have these butterflies, and we all at times feel that yes, maybe this is not a valid solution, or maybe there's not even a valid situation at hand. But I think you should kind of give a pat on the back, given the fact that you are listening to this this recording, because the fact that you've decided that you're going to be part of this is you already have chosen. So you've got ahead of your fears, at least to begin with. Continue that. Think about when you're looking at solutions, when you're thinking about implementing a particular solution or trying a particular solution, you need to have that same mindset. This most important part is to be realistic, right? You can't solution for a lot, given the fact that you are cramped for time. You are having a limited amount of time in this case. So make it small, measurable goals. In agile engineering, we call it as measurable goals, or we call them as MVPs. Now, this MVP doesn't need to be a full-blown as we're looking from a project standpoint. A small thing, if I'm trying to automate this one job, what can I do in that time limit that I have? Can I just prove that this can be done, address a part of it, invoke that job in an automated way, and out of the 10 things I want to do, maybe two things in sequence or parallel, and see, yes, this is possible. It is all about proving the art of the possible, if I were to use that word, and say that yes, it's a success, or no, I need to go back to the drawing board and start this process again. If it's a success, build out the roadmap and talk about it. So all this will happen with research, right? Because research, the more you do prior to the event, things will go as per plan. So planning, research, we talked about this. These are some of the most important aspects of what we would want to do. And it's a learning experience. It's not that you premeditated and everything. You're coming this just to kind of claim the glory for that. It's an experiment. You're going to be together trying to figure out, well, this is what we think. Is it going to work? Let's do a road test, find out if, let's kind of respect the whole process. Let's not be shy. Let's not be upset that this did work or didn't work. If it works, great, but don't just stress out. If it doesn't, you can always know that, yes, this doesn't work. So that next time when I think about something of this, I'm not going to try this because I tried it once, it doesn't work. So it could be a process of elimination rather than a process of identify a successful route. So, and then I think this is where I think this is where I'll stop, because we talked through a lot of different things. Yeah, we talked about how you would want to kind of come up with a high level idea, put a lot of thought towards, look at alternatives, look at anything meaningful that you can do, which means that even reducing the effort by a fraction, or if it's possible to kind of do a meaningful change, the more the merrier. But it's all about respecting the process where we sit in groups, do the research, do some discussions, debate if you want, get help from your mentors and your peers, yeah, reach out to your support groups and see if this is something that's worth trying. And if you kind of come up with that saying that this is worth trying, no matter what the other groups or the folks have to say, I think it's worth a try. At least so that you can try this out. If this works, great. If not, like I said in the past, document it and move on. Because at the end of the day, it's all about building a knowledge base, building a set of do's and don'ts, and not being able, not being shy or afraid to experiment with. That's all I would say as a hackathon, the objectives of a hackathon, and most importantly, through the eyes of a non-coder or a non-technologist. So like you see, there's a lot that goes around. One of the aspects of that is is building the solution, which again, in today's environment, looking at all the fourth generational tools that you have at your disposal, you don't necessarily have to code. You might have to learn a package, you might have to learn a tool, but that's more as, like I said earlier, it's click and no code, or for that matter, low code, which basically the best example of that is use an Excel macro, record certain steps, some clicks, go and see the code that it creates. You'll be amazed at seeing that some of them are logical, and this has been there for ages, literally, Microsoft Office, right? But now once you see that, maybe you would be tempted to see, if I just change this line, how would this function? Maybe it'll break, but then at least that's a way for you to figure out. So there are a lot of these tools available in the market these days. Some of them are not necessarily free, but then if it's a hackathon, you can use a trial version, get acquainted to that, and try out various solutions. I think that's pretty much. I hope I'll be able to talk to you folks while you are in the hackathon session, and looking forward to that. And if there's anything that you would want to kind of reach out to me, I think the organizing committee and the team would find a way to do that. So all the best to all the participants who looking forward to working together in this hackathon. I would say, let the best creative juices start flowing in, and you guys succeed. Thank you for listening, and happy inventing.